What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. So today is going to be a little bit different of a video. I actually wanted to sit down and tell a story. The story is going to be about probably the scariest day that I had during my weight loss journey. Now, before we actually get into the story, the reason that I even wanted to talk about this was because I know that for some of the people that might be following me or even following other influencers or people like that, you might see people that are successful in weight loss and just assume that they've had maybe an easy time or that it's been like an easy road for them. And for me, it's definitely not the case, and I don't ever want people to think that. And so this is something that happened to me a few years ago and something that I dealt with a few years ago that luckily I'm not dealing with anymore, but it was definitely something that I had to struggle with. And you know, with everything, I don't want to say that I wish it didn't happen, because I definitely learned a lot from the experience and from the situation. But hopefully me telling this story will, one, let you guys know that nobody's perfect and we all struggle, and two, hopefully it will give you the information so you don't have to deal with what I dealt with, because I wouldn't wish this on anyone either. So getting back to the story, as a lot of you guys know, and I've talked about it a few times on the channel before, I actually struggled with binge eating a little bit when I was losing my weight and after I had lost my weight. I actually struggled with it probably more after I had lost the majority of my weight, just because I was so strict, and in my head I felt like I was always striving for trying to lower my calories more, because for me, when I was losing my weight, I equated calories to like being evil. So like the more calories something had, the more I had to avoid that thing, which is understandable when you're trying to lose weight, but it got very unhealthy for me. And when it comes to any sort of like eating disorder or any sort of issue revolving around food, I think that the main thing that we need to focus on is the reason and what's going on in our heads, because two people might be doing similar things, but they can actually have completely different motivations, and in their head they are rationalizing things differently, and it could actually be maybe a healthy habit for one person, but it's a completely unhealthy habit for another person. So that's why I try not to look at what people are doing and saying, oh, that's bad, that's really unhealthy. Instead, I think it's important to understand why the person is doing what they're doing, and for me, the why was definitely an unhealthy obsession. So to make a long story short, as far as like the binge eating, the way that it kind of developed for me, again, this is me, I'm not saying this is going to be for anybody else. When I was losing weight, I realized that the lower calories I ate, the better I did, the better I did in my head. So instead of, I started eating maybe 2,000 calories in a completely healthy way, doing everything right, I noticed that I was losing weight. So then I would think, okay, what if I eat 1,800 calories? What if I eat 1,600 calories? What if I eat 1,200 calories? Down to, maybe what if I eat 700 calories? So once I got down to the low end of the spectrum, when I was eating really like small amounts of food, in my head I'm thinking, oh, I'm doing so well, but I'm also really afraid of food. And I was like afraid of calories, and calories to me were evil. They were the reason that I had, gained the weight that I had gained. So while I was eating like the 700 calories, I would do that for, 3-4 days, and then like clockwork, I would just break because the amount of calories I was eating was so low. But in my head, I had the mentality of, well, if I can do it for one day, I can do it for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, right? Like if I can do it for one day, I should be able to do it for forever. And that's just not a healthy way to go about it. So like anyone kind of could have guessed, right? I was struggling with binge eating. So I would do well. Again, I wouldn't recommend eating that amount of calories to anybody, but I would do well in my head, eating 700 calories, and then I would break and I would binge. Now, at the time, I didn't really know much about binge eating, so I was just, I felt like I was just being not disciplined, and I felt like I was not doing the right thing. So I didn't really know what was going on, but I struggled with that for a while. I'm definitely glossing over a good amount of stuff. I've talked about this before, but I struggled with that for a while, the binging and everything like that. It never got to a point where I was struggling with like purging or, eating something and then throwing it back up, anything like that. Like I didn't struggle with that at all. And so in my head, I guess I felt like because I wasn't doing anything like that, I guess I felt like I wasn't struggling that bad. I felt like what I was doing was pretty normal, and like it wasn't that big of a deal. Now, again, we're gonna fast forward a good amount of time, but we're gonna fast forward to when I actually worked at Starbucks. Now, if you're a super OG subscriber to the channel, you'll remember the first videos I made was when I was working my 2 jobs, and I was working at Starbucks and at 24 Hour Fitness. All right, guys, so it's 6 a.m. at work on my break, and I'm having a skinny vanilla latte. It's delicious. I think I'm gonna go to the gym later today. I'm probably just gonna do some cardio because I lifted pretty heavy deadlifts yesterday. That was a really fun time in my life. But this is the place where I actually had I would say the biggest like scare. And I understand it might sound, scare might be a overreactive word, but it truly was a scary moment for me. So let's talk about that. So when I worked at Starbucks, I was actually the opener, and I think our store opened at 4. So I would get there at 3:30. So I'd wake up at like 3 in the morning, get to work. And what I did was I opened the front end. So basically what I did was I set up the pastry case. So for those of you guys that go to Starbucks, the pastry case, all of the food in there is all in wrappers, and then the person that's opening will take it out of the wrappers and set it up and like make it look nice in that pastry case. So that's what my job was. So I was always handling all these like really great smelling pastries. You would heat them up, some of them, to make them look the way they're supposed to look. So you can imagine I'm struggling with this and I'm handling all of this food. Now, while I worked at Starbucks, I literally never had a Frappuccino until my very last day. I had like a super small one. I was in my mind, I was being very strict and I was being very good to my diet. But looking back, I definitely could have had a little bit more, I guess you could say, fun. I could have indulged a little bit, but I was just so afraid. And that's why, that's going back to like the mindset that I was talking about. If your goal, and if you understand that, yeah, you can have some of those foods, but I'm just not going to do it right now because it's not in line with my goals, I would say that that's fine. For me, the reason I wasn't eating any of the pastries, the reason that I wasn't, maybe having a fun drink every now and then was because I was genuinely scared of gaining my weight back. And so that's why I think for me, it was an unhealthy obsession. Fast forward a little bit, I've been working at Starbucks for a while. And while you're working there, people will order things and say, like, if you put one of the pastries in the oven to heat it up and maybe it falls and it touches the oven, you're supposed to get another one. And that would happen relatively frequently. Or you would go to make something and then someone say, oh, actually, I don't want that anymore. Or something would happen where there would be extra pastries that we had heated up that we're not allowed to sell anymore. So then they would be in the back room. If anybody wanted one, they could grab one, they could have a little bite or something like that, right? So I was actually on one of my breaks and there was a cinnamon roll that was sitting next to me. And I just remember I was like sitting on my break and I was just drinking like a regular coffee with nothing in it, right? So I was like sitting there and I just kept looking at it, right? I just kept like looking at it. I'd look at it again. I was kind of like looking around to make sure no one was there because everyone that worked there kind of knew me as a guy that wouldn't indulge in the pastries, wouldn't eat any of the foods, wouldn't drink any of the drinks. So it almost became my identity there, right? And so, but then I just kind of like cracked and I grabbed the cinnamon roll and I stuffed it in my mouth. And I literally probably had about half of the cinnamon roll in my mouth. I took a huge bite. I set it down and I started chewing it. And then this is what really freaked me out. As I was chewing it, I just kind of like looked, I started freaking out, like legitimately freaking out. And I grabbed a trash can and I spit out the food. Now it's nothing, I didn't like eat it and swallow it and then throw it back up or anything like that, but it felt the same way. Like I think that the mentality I had was the same thing. And that right there freaked me out to no end. So after it happened, I went back to work and everything like that, but I could not stop thinking about that for the rest of the day, I think it was even like a couple days, just because I knew that wasn't right. Like I knew that there was something going on and my relationship with food was really, really jacked up. And so there's no like coming to Jesus moment here. I just kind of really started to be more aware of the food I was eating and tried to think like, why do I feel this way? Like, I don't want that to ever happen again. And thankfully I never did that again. I've never dealt with anything, any sort of, purging or anything like that. That was the only time I've ever done that. But I think it was because of how much that freaked me out that I was like, I'm never going to do that. If I'm going to choose to eat a pastry, I'm going to eat the pastry and I'm going to enjoy it, right? Or whatever the food might be. I'm not going to let myself feel this insane amount of guilt because I felt like this crazy guilt and I didn't even eat the actual pastry, but it really was a scary moment for me. Again, the reason that I'm telling this story is because now where I am in my life with my relationship with food and stuff, I can honestly eat whatever I feel like I want to eat and I'm able to make smart decisions. I'm not super worried about food. I really do feel like right now my relationship with food is better than it's ever been. But there was a time where it was not that way, and it was really, really jacked up. And so the reason that I'm making this video is because I want people to understand that if you're going through that, you know, those trials, those tribulations, if you're going through those really rough patches, understand that it's normal. I'm not saying that you should feel okay about it. You should work to get out of it, but you shouldn't be like, oh, this is everything. Something's wrong with me. I struggle with this and nobody else does, because I can almost guarantee you anybody that's lost a massive amount of weight has had some issues with food. So I just really want people that are watching this to understand that you're not alone in those really maybe dark moments in your journey. It happens to, I can't say everybody because again, I don't know everybody's story, but from all of my friends that I've talked to, we all have similar issues that we've had with food, and there's been things we had to work through. So I just really want people that are watching this to understand that if you are going through a rough patch, it is very normal and you can get through it and you can overcome that. With that being said, I want to make it very clear, I am not a professional. If you are really struggling with some sort of eating disorder or anything like that, 100% I would say go get some legit help. Find somebody that can really help you. I am not a professional, right? I don't like to give advice about that. I'm just trying to share my experience. I do think that, you know, there are a lot of people that are struggling with these little things that maybe don't require like super crazy intervention, but just require maybe even just patience and understanding like, yeah, right now I'm struggling with this, but it's not going to be the end of the world and it's not going to be forever. I just need to keep working through it. Again, not saying that I'm a licensed professional or anything like that. That's just my opinion. I have to be honest in saying that sharing this, you know, this moment in my life still is scary for me, because I do understand the amount of people that are watching, the audience that I have, and I never want it to seem like I am saying that this sort of behavior is okay. I am trying to show that there are other people that struggle with it, and I guess when I think about how many people are watching, I always feel this kind of pressure to want to be better than this person or try and be the best version for you guys, when in reality, I'm just a guy that struggled a lot with food. I struggled a lot with eating issues and in my relationship with food, and I was able to get out of that. And I really want people to understand that you can get out of it, but if while you're getting out of it, you're struggling with some serious things, it's okay, and you can still 100% defeat those demons and come out the other side a better version of yourself. So there you guys go. That's the video. Again, I'm not a licensed professional. I just wanted to share what I've been through and let people know that if you are struggling with something, you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. A lot of people are struggling as well. And just because I have this YouTube channel and have all these people that are following me, I am far from perfect, and I absolutely had struggles, still have struggles, and I try my best to be as transparent as possible, especially in the fitness industry. Everyone likes to make it seem like they're perfect. I am not perfect at all, so hopefully this video was able to show that a little bit more. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. There was something else that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, look how buff I am.
Obey the warning signs, and when there are flashing lights or wigwags, don't attempt to cross until they come to a complete stop.